This podcast is made possible by Vena. Hello and welcome to Planning Aces. On today's show, we'll be featuring FP&A insights and commentary of three finance leaders, including CFO Jared Poff of Designer Brands, CFO John McCauley of Calendly, and CFO Tom Fenimore of Luminar Technologies. This is Jack Sweeney, your co-host, and I'm pleased to be having FP&A troubleshooter and consultant Soufyan Hamid joining me as we seek to highlight the takeaways from our distinguished group of Planning Aces. We begin after this. Managing multiple spreadsheets, disconnected data, numbers you just can't trust. Your finance team can't be the strategic partner your organization needs right now with obstacles like that getting in your way. Vena can change that. Vena brings people, processes, and systems together in a single collaborative analytical platform so you can drive connected business planning and better decision making. And it's the only native Excel complete planning platform built for Microsoft 365 with Power BI embedded. With Vena, your financial and operational data is always connected, and your teams are always armed with insights and time to focus on what matters most. So when the stakes are high and the margin for error low, plan with agility, plan with resilience, plan with Vena so you can be prepared for whatever comes next. Visit venasolutions.com/planningaces to learn more about how Vena will help you plan for anything. Hi, it's Jack Sweeney. Welcome to Planning Aces. I'm here with Soufyan Hamid, FP&A troubleshooter and consultant. As some of you might recall, I've been on something of a walkabout lately in the FP&A realm. I've been introducing myself to some of the experts out there, some of the experts that always seem to be surfacing in my LinkedIn feed. And I have to say, few recent posts have intrigued me more than those of Soufyan. His posts frequently offer insight into FP&A troubleshooting as well as finance presentations. But Soufyan, I have to say, I'm not even certain where we're connecting with each other. Where are you based? I'm curious. But as always, first, let me just say welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to get to know you and participate to the Planning Aces podcast. Well, I'm in Brussels and I've always lived there, except some time in Spain during 6 months in exchange program.
But you built your career in Brussels. Were these companies that were based there that you initially found employment with, or how did it work?
Well, in the first part of my career, I was working at PwC and Deloitte, first in audit and then in consulting. So it was based in Belgium itself, but not only in Brussels. I've worked sometimes in other regions of the country to master my Flemish also. So I worked in the other region. Brussels is mostly where I've worked because it's where I live. And we do not move a lot in Belgium, to be honest. we work close from home, and if you want to go to the other side of the country, it's maximum 1 hour per car. It's really small country. So
Particularly now, I would think there are a lot of companies watching the economy very closely and are not certain they want to make a hire. At the same time, their FP&A teams are feeling some pain, or they might not have all the talent that they require there. That's where you come in. How am I doing? Am I close to how you see the workplace?
it's a new trend indeed, because generally when they don't have the budgets to hire people, well, they do not have other options than to hire an external. It's just a question of classification payroll, against sundry expenses, consulting expenses. What I generally do is intervene when people are leaving the company, when they have a new job, or they lose their jobs, or for more short-term projects like a maternity leave, for example, or a long-term disease, which is not always fun, but they as you said, the FP&A team still needs to run. And in that case, they can hire me for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. And it's what I like about it is that I tried working for a company during a long time. It was a telco company in Belgium. And I noticed that after 5 years, I started to get bored. Basically, each time I have a new project, it's a new adventure. I get to know new people, new businesses, and I can bring also my new view.
Exactly. That new view is what caught my attention on LinkedIn, more or less, where you do post fairly frequently on finance communications and storytelling. And there was a particular post, I don't have it in front of me here, but there was a particular post where you talked about storytelling in finance. And I just thought it was spot on. And in fact, I had just interviewed a CFO, Jared Poff of Designer Brands out of Columbus, Ohio. The clip I want to share will be something of a coming attraction because CFO Poff's episode will not be released until February 8th on CFO Thought Leader. It'll be number 871. But I'd like to share this now with our listeners, Soufyan, and I think you'll find as well what Jared Poff shares of interest.
When I think of the finance strategic moment for me, it was more around the difference between being the CFO versus even being an SVP of finance, where you're still very much in the operational piece of running a finance department. You're the controller, you're the treasurer. And I remember that I got the interim role. I had this massively huge binder, which I had memorized inside and out, but I mean, it was huge because I was going to my first board meeting. I had no idea what I was going to be asked. So I knew every number. I was able to flip to wherever. And we're coming back from that meeting, and the CEO tells me, he says, I never want you to bring that binder anywhere again. So if you need it, find a technological solution, but I don't want to see that. You're not showing up the way that a senior CFO should. And then he told me, and I don't want you using a number when you are presenting. If the CFO is using numbers, they are not telling the story. He goes, you've got people who tell the numbers. I need a partner. I need an executive who's going to be storytelling. Now they're going to wrap around, what this means financially for the business, but to 90% of the business, they don't understand the numbers anyway, but they need to understand the impact of the number. And so I said, you want me to be a CFO and never quote a number when I'm talking? And he said, absolutely. That is what I count as success. And it really was a pivot for me when I said, that is the difference between, being an operational finance executive and being a senior sort of CFO executive. You really are trying to convince people. You're trying to assure people. You're trying to make them move in the direction you need them to make. And when 90% of them are not numbers-oriented people, you're not going to do that with a number. And so I would tell you, I think if you were to ask anyone inside of Designer Brands, when I give up and give my monthly presentations to leadership or my quarterly presentations to the whole company, they actually look forward to it. I've got a little gimmick where I always tie something back to an 80s movie or an 80s song that's just a decade I loved. And so that's always a connection I have. But it can tell a financial story without, scaring them with a number. And that was it. It's way more about storytelling and influencing once you're a CFO than it is around, seeing a number and trying to get people to appreciate that number.
Well, thank you again to CFO Jared Poff, who, quick fast fact, began his finance career inside the accounting department of Abercrombie and Fitch. So, Soufyan, what did you make of what CFO Poff shared with us?
Well, I could not find someone who would say what I think so clearly. I can remember this binder he brought in the meeting room with all those figures. This is the typical thing that finance people do. They want to be sure of what they have in their presentations. They want to have all the facts, the figures with them. So in case somebody has a question, they can deliver the answer as soon as possible. But the fact is, whatever you do, the figures, nobody will remember them after the presentation unless you speak about a real important figure, a percentage, target, something that people have to remember and that they will visualize in your slides, whatever they do. But if you bring big tables, if you bring big charts with a lot of figures, nobody will remember the message. And I would just add upon what he said that you don't have to wait to be a CFO to do that. And so I think that the role of the CFO is to cascade that learning towards his team so that everybody will be ready to bring the message, because everybody has a different audience, but those audiences are not figure people. And so if it's not the C-suite, then it will be the marketing department, the sales department, who will have a finance business partner on their own. And they cannot wait for the CFO to bring them the story. So the FP&A analysts, the finance managers, all those people have to get the same message. Don't bring the figures, bring the message.
Well said. Earlier, Soufyan, you were explaining the circumstances where a troubleshooter like yourself can be brought in to help a FP&A team. And I imagine you join all types of organizations, and how they structure FP&A and the data team and the business intelligence folks. Uh, Certainly, there's no one size fits all. Anyway, our next planning ace is John McCauley, CFO of Calendly, and he just gave this great overview as far as how the organization functions and the different pieces that come together. I think our listeners will find it interesting, and you too, Soufyan. Here, I'll be interested to hear what you think.
When you have such a heterogeneous install base that Calendly has, I mean, we have so many different use cases in so many different industries with so many different levels of complexity. When you look at our data at a consolidated basis, it has nominal value. It's hard to take action on this heterogeneous group that everybody's doing something different. Where the real value comes in is our ability to drill in and cohort based on certain demographics, your seat count, what industry you're in, what is your use case. And that can be a very challenging data problem because you have to enrich the data. You need the data to be accurate. You need to be able to track a subscription coming in and out. So, it is a very complex problem that we're trying to solve here. And I do spend a big chunk of my day on it. And Jack, at our organization, I think we have a tremendous data and engineering team that reports up through our CTO. Data science sits over there as well. We also have a data and analytics team that reports into me. These are the people who can take that data that's been engineered. And we're right now, it's all about having a terrific data warehouse, which we're using BigQuery over on the GCP, the Google Cloud. And then I've got my data and analytics people who are very good at writing the code to query that data and get us to where we want. And then we do have an FP&A layer as well. And the FP&A layer, I use them as kind of translating, speaking the language of the business and speaking the level of the data at a level that allows the data and analytics team to do their work. So the way I think about it, FP&A really needs to design the questions we're trying to answer. The data and analytics team needs to be able to write the queries to answer those questions. And our data and engineering team has to put the data in a structure that we can query and get value out of it. So everybody has their role. And I can tell you this is an area that we're evolving here. I'd say we're mediocre at it right now. And we're very focused on investing and getting better, because those are the insights that allow us to run the company at a more.
CFO John McCauley, I should mention, CFO McCauley's episode will be released February 5th, episode number 870 on CFO Thought Leader. And so, Soufyan, what did you make? I thought it was a terrific overview, but what's the takeaway for you?
Well, there is a sentence I will not forget. He says that FP&A needs to design the questions that we need to answer. And this is completely what I think, and we are definitely in the future of finance, because here you step in from the original role of finance, which was mostly a back office department supporting the business, and you slowly go towards creating and helping the business develop. You see, you are not anymore in the shadow as we used to be. You are directly into the business and into the strategy. And so that's completely in the modern trend today, because a lot of people are asking themselves on LinkedIn, outside of LinkedIn, should finance, FP&A, learn to code, for example? Should they learn SQL, Python, R to do their job better? And my opinion on it, and I'm really happy that with what he says, that there are different roles in the company. Not one is above the other, but if it's about coding, if it's about data maintenance, well, maintenance should be for engineering. The coding and the report should be in that data analytics, and FP&A should be in another step, which is designing the question that the business asks themselves. So we can use the data, operational and financial data, to help them answer to those questions. And it completely blew my mind, because some people will agree with me that I don't see finance people being coder in the company. They should not, for me. If they do, great. It's always good to have some strength, but it's not the priority. Invest more in understanding how you can help build concrete things in the company. That makes me remember how I was in the past.
How so? In what respect?
Well, finance professionals used to be happy about technical skills they developed, Excel, modeling. And so I was the typical finance professionals. I was really happy to master Power Query, Power Pivot. When I arrived at Proximus, my previous company, I started doing that. I was performing and I was delivering dashboards, reporting. Everybody was happy about my work. So I improved based upon that, and I built my image, my personal branding on technical skills. But then I remember the day I decided to switch and make the complete opposite. I was, like, each month preparing the slides for the finance VP, and like each month, he asked questions, and I was answering with details, with saying it depends. It's not so easy. You have to take into account this and this and this and this. And then one day he told me, and I will remember this phrase all my life, Soufyan, you're a technician. You're a technician, but the people in front of me will not be. So you have to tell a story and not the technicalities. And since this day, I made completely the switch. So I completely understand where most of finance people are today, but it's important that the more they will listen to such CFOs mentioning that they do not have to bring one figure, two figures, a binder, but delivering the message, the story, the more they will be implicated into the business activities of their business.
Strong point and nicely made one. Thank you for that, Soufyan. Our next planning ace will be Tom Fenimore, CFO of Luminar Technologies. Tom's episode will be released on January 29th, so right around the corner. It's episode number 868. And Tom and CFO Fenimore provided us with a nice overview as far as developing talent and creating sort of a talent model within finance. I thought it was a nice overview, sharing some of his talent philosophy, if you will, with us. Here is Tom Fenimore.
So, a few things. So, one, when I first joined as a CFO, I had a very honest assessment of what my skill set was. What was I good at? What was I not good at? And, it was my first time going into the CFO role. So, I brought in a good chief accounting officer to help me build out the accounting organization. I brought in, the head of IR from Intel to actually not only be the head of IR for us, but also to lead our FP&A organization. And then I also moved some good athletes, around as well. So the person who was running FP&A when I joined, very, very good individual. We had a need to help him go figure out the finances and help grow one of the parts at Luminar. So moving him around. That's one of the things that I learned at Goldman. Goldman was very good at hiring smart people, moving them around. The other thing that we're starting to do is, to borrow a football term, we've been building through free agency here at Luminar. Goldman was very good at building out at the draft, hiring good athletes out of college and then training them and going them around. That's one of our focus areas on 2023 is starting to do that and build for the longer term, which I think is very important. But from my perspective, a lot of it was building the team below me, particularly to complement my skill set and to a certain extent, giving them the right focus areas, giving them the right OKRs, empowering them to go out and run the team there are, being there when they need you, holding them accountable for what they need to be accountable for. But I think a lot of it was building the right team around me to help me. And, right now I feel like I have the right team in place and, it allows me to think more strategically about where we want to grow our business, not only from the finance side. It's also enabled me to start taking on some responsibilities that a traditional CFO doesn't normally take. We're building out Luminar China. Given my experience in China, I'm playing a leadership role in that. We are looking to get into, I oversee our business development team, given I used to call on a lot of these automotive clients. So helping our business development team think through who are the customers we should focus on, where are our priorities, how do we cover them, how do we kind of, convert our discussions into a win. Using my skill set that I developed as in the investment banking industry, bringing that and using that on the BD team. And so there are areas where, as a CFO, I'm kind of stepping out the traditional roles and helping Luminar grow, and I'm able to do that because I built a great team around me.
And so, Soufyan, once again, in light of your FP&A mindset, what is it that Tom Fenimore shared sort of struck you?
So here, I think that what we have to point out from what Tom said during the interview and the podcast is that the CFO does not have to be the best in everything, but he has to be the best leader a finance team needs. And he has to surround himself with the best in each area. And so when you are in a company, when you arrive as a leader, well, take those in who you trust, but also build on what you already have in the company and find the talents you need. And if you don't, try to develop them according to your wishes, because you know that a lot of people will be better than you in some areas. And I kind of hope you have better people working for you, because your role is not to be the best in tax. It's not to be the best in treasury. It's not to be the best in planning, budgeting, and so on. No, it's to understand all those and make sure that they work together as a team to deliver the best value finance can have.
So after we hear our 3 planning aces each episode, we look for to highlight once again just some of the prominent takeaways. I have to say the one that really stuck with me is that FP&A should be designing the questions that need to be asked. I thought that was really powerful. What did you think?
Yeah, sure. That's important, because when stating this, he also brings an important point, is that it's not about the data anymore. Let's say the data should be something that's considered as acquired and correct, and from this data you develop what we call our business acumen. He expects, and this is what we should expect from finance professional, to understand what's happening in the business self, what's happening in the real situation in the sales department, for example, in the production department. They have to understand first what's happening there, what clients do we have, what customers do we have, what's the repartition geographical per product, how do we produce those products. Those are the important points for finance professionals, FP&A professionals, because when they will interact with their colleagues from other departments, they will not do it with the figures and with accounting, but they will do it based on their knowledge of what others do, because this will be the best way for them to understand what's behind the figures.
And again, it comes back to, well, where we began, which is storytelling.
And this is why I say to FP&A professionals, start to invest in showing yourself, because it's one of the only ways for FP&A professional to develop a personal branding in a company. And let's be honest, when you go to the top positions of finance, it's not only about technical, but it's also about you, about yourself, about your personal branding. And so when I say that to FP&A professionals, it's to make them realize that you have to think about that too, because otherwise you will be frustrated because you think that you deserve a promotion, you deserve to go higher because you are good in what you do. But it's not only about that anymore at a certain level. And you have to develop those storytelling skills, those leadership skills, to make sure you can go to the level you need as a CFO.
So, Soufyan, I think that's a nice place to end our chat. At the start of our discussion, it sounded like you have school drop-offs to make each morning.
Well, I have two children indeed, and it's pretty much of my life today. You've been a parent too, I guess. And
what ages are they now?
yeah, they're 8 and 5, and it's the good age because you share a lot with them. But it's also a lot of investment because the one has to go to rugby, the other has judo, and then you're pretty much playing the taxi driver, and you have to be with them all the time. I still find time to work
Well, thank you for letting us catch up with you on a work week. We're near the end of this one, and we've enjoyed having you as our co-host this episode.
Thank you for inviting me. That was really fun too.